drawing number 2 in the cat drawing sequence. So this is a drawing I did earlier today. It was done with a 6B pencil on white layout bond paper. You can watch cat video part 1 for an explanation of what that paper is and what that pencil is, if you're not familiar with them already. So this was done from a photo that I just looked up on Google for a picture of a cat stretching. And so I think I'm going to talk a little bit more, with a little bit more focus on this one about anatomy, about the way that understanding animal anatomy is helpful for explaining why the contours of the drawing appear the way they do. Because with any kind of drawing, there's a lot of wiggles in your lines. There's going to be bumps and hollows and things that stick out and different shapes. I think sometimes lines are angular, sometimes they're rounded. And with animals, there's usually a structural reason for almost everything that you see. There are certain things like just the way that hair might stick out from a spot where it really could be anything. It's just kind of a random mishmash. But most of the lines that you see in an animal drawing are the way they are because of some kind of underlying physiological or anatomical structure. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what those are for this cat. Cats are quadrupedal. They go around on all fours. They have they walk on the tips of their toes. So they're referred to as digitigrade or digigrade quadrupeds. So you can see a couple of things about that here. For example, the little tiny front part of the paw is where the paw touches the ground, and that's not the whole foot, that's just the toes. The heel is this right here. And so, you know, coming into this, I already have a certain amount of knowledge of what cats are, how they walk around. I'm not looking at a totally unfamiliar species and trying to figure out what the heck anything is. So let's look at some of the other structures on the cat and see which of them can be identified with a particular skeletal feature. That's usually an easy thing to do. The bones make their presence known on the surface very definitively, more so than muscles. Bones are usually the best landmarks. Hang on. Bones are usually the best landmarks to look for compared to fat or muscle tissue, which can vary a bit more. I'm going to try to find another colored pencil so I can do more than one color. 1 second. All right. So we've got red and green. So let's talk about the front limbs. Mammals and birds have, and lizards, so terrestrial animals have roughly the same body plan with variations. There's what are referred to as the two girdles, which are the structures that support the limbs. There's the shoulder girdle, which is the front, and that's the shoulder, and then there's the pelvic girdle. And so, you know, all animals that you might intend to draw, except for the fish, we've all got roughly the same bones. There's a scapula back here, there's a humerus, there's radius and ulna, and then various bones of the fingers. Same thing in the back, you've got a pelvis, and then a humerus, and a tibia, and a fibula, and then foot bones. So those really don't, you know that they're going to be there, but where they differ is their relative size, their orientation, what direction do they point, where on the body are they positioned, and then of course there's a spine, and a rib cage, and a cranium, and there may or may not be a tail. We don't have tails, and our closest relatives, the great apes, also don't have tails. So the tail is really, you know, the fact that there's these extra vertebrae on critters with tails is kind of, that's one of the more substantial variations between the primates and, let's say, you know, dogs and cats and deer and stuff like that. So on this drawing, we can see a couple things right away. One of them is this right here. This little lump that's sticking up right here is the shoulder blade of the arm that's on the other side. So I'm just going to point this out here because we can't see a lot of the other stuff on the other side, but we can see some of the things here. So the cat's walking or stretching. This foot is touching the ground and pushing upward on this side, which means that this shoulder blade is going to be pushed up above the line of the spine. And because this side is pushed up, the other side is going to be pushed down. So the shoulder blade for this side is lower, and it's approximately there. And the limb, I'm not perfectly certain about it, but I'm pretty sure that the humerus is probably here-ish, and then this would be the elbow. It might be somewhere, it's somewhere in this area here. And then the sort of forearm stuff is here, with the heel of the hand kind of here, and then there's finger bones and then toe bones, or, you know, the last digit of your finger, like that spot. If it were your hands, then these fingers, you wouldn't see them separated necessarily here. You'd only see these little joints at the very, very end. So that's pretty much approximately where I'm guessing that stuff is. I may be wrong because I did this drawing without having without looking at a skeletal reference, because I didn't really feel like it was a huge deal at the moment to make sure I knew exactly where it was, because I was drawing from a little bit more kind of rough place. But if I had to do like a very, very complex pose for a cat, I would definitely chart out where all those bones would be in some way before I moved on, because this can provide some useful information. Okay, so that's where the heel of that hand is. This is the heel of this on the other side, the heel of this paw. And this is where these finger bones are, and then the very, very last digit. So there's this shoulder blade, which we can just see the top of, and then we've got two arms on the other side, and we can't see them, but we know they're there. And the next thing that's really critical is this part of the pelvis back here. Just take a little aside to talk about something. Difference between quadrupedal critters' pelvis and human pelvis. Most quadrupedal animals, mammals, have a pelvis that's kind of shaped like a barrel. It's a tube. You look at it from the side, and it has it's made of two parts that come together, but it's a little bit more elongated in this direction than our pelvis is. Our pelvis, by the same view, is very narrow and shallow. I don't know. We have a very narrow pelvis. And same thing, front view, you look at the pelvis of a quadrupedal critter, and it's kind of like that. And our pelvis, if you look at it from the front, is kind of like that. So I don't want to get off on a big tangent about human anatomy versus quadrupedal anatomy, because we could be here all day. But what I do know is that I'm going to be looking for a high point a little bit back before the tail. This pelvis sticks back and it has a high point back here. The femur drops down to about here. That's where the knee is. And then the tibia and fibula go back here to the heel. And then the foot bones are down here and the toe bones down there. So, this, just to kind of talk about, I talked about how this shoulder is up and the shoulder is down. Well, this side of the pelvis is up, which is the opposite side of the shoulder. The way that these things always tend to work out is that things find balance. Something is raised, it means something else is lowered. Something is pushed up, means something else is smushed down. Things twist and flex, and they support themselves by compensating the opposite side. So there's weight on this foot, and then there's weight on this foot. The weight hasn't transferred to this foot yet, and the weight hasn't transferred to this one yet. So, that's one thing that you can find helpful, is that if the left arm is up, then the right foot is going to be up. Things tend to be on the opposite of where they are on the front or the back, so that everything is kind of even and balanced. So this side of the pelvis, you can see there's a tilt this way on the shoulders and a tilt this way on the pelvis. Again, these things are complementary with each other. They compensate each other. They keep everything in balance. So on this side, this is mostly just like fleshy cat meat. But we can still see a little bit like the heel, this equivalent here, and the toes and the little toe bones. So we know that there's probably a knee in there and a tibia in there, but we can't see them very well, and it's okay. So we have pretty much the big limb things in position. The spine kind of hangs out. The limbs are doing most of the work, and the spine can twist, but the spine is a little bit more passive. So if you get the shoulders and the pelvis in the right place, then the spine should just kind of hang into place, which it does here. The rib cage, in this situation, the rib cage is, it's actually a little bit further back. I maybe didn't place it in the right spot, but the rib cage doesn't have a really strong presence on this drawing, which may just be my oversight And then there's this, the one thing that gets a little bit confusing, and I think one of the things I got confused about here is that a cat who's been spayed or neutered is going to have kind of a pouch here of loose skin. I mean, they all do it, even if they haven't been spayed or neutered. But there's like a bunch of loose skin that kind of hangs off that connects between the knee and the rib cage, and sometimes this area and this area, which is the rib cage, are so similar in shape that I'll be drawing one of them and then I'll kind of overlap, or I'll miss which one is supposed to be which, or I'll move them too close together. And that's something I'm trying to work on here. So then we've got, what else? We have the neck. And then up here in the front, we've got the cranium here. And then the orbit of the eye, we know is there. There's a thrust out of the mandible. There's the orbit of the eye. In the first video in this series, I talk a little bit about how the orbit of the eye on a cat coincides with the little light patch underneath their eye. But approximately, this is what we're looking at. There's this come forward, the nose is made of cartilage, and there's the snout is very shallow. And then there's loose skin, muscle of the neck. The neck is inside here. I have to go back and look at a reference because I don't remember off the top of my head the way that the cat shoulder articulates with the rib cage, and I want to say, if it's not true, I'll put a big message in the video. I want to say that cats don't have any actual bone interface between the shoulder and the rib cage. That the shoulder's just kind of floating out there, which is why they can do all kinds of completely insane stuff with their bodies, like fit through really small containers or, openings and stuff, or go under a door, because they have very little restriction on the range of motion of their shoulders, because I think they're not actually attached to anything. And I think that might also be true of their collarbones. But anyway, I will find out, and I'll put the truth of the matter into the video if possible. Okay, so what else do we have? We've pretty much mapped out most of the important bone-based landmarks here. Yeah, so what else do we have? We have the tail here, and the tail is an extension of the spine. It doesn't really stick out very much. The tail is thoroughly covered in fur, and so it's not the kind of gesture of it you can capture, but it doesn't have bony landmarks the same way that, like, the shoulder blade pokes out really close to the skin, or the heel of the hand or the heel of the foot is a place where there's less between the bone and the outside world. So once you kind of have this stuff in place, if you were drawing a human, then you might start getting into the whole, like, where's the origin and insertion of all these different muscles, or you start, like, shading in people's abs, or doing some, like, extremely Rob Liefeld drawing of, like, somebody's huge pecs or something, because we're hairless and you can see all kinds of, like, definition in some people's muscles, more so than you can with furry critters. So, you can you can be way more laissez-faire about the anatomy that you want to learn with furred critters, fur-bearing animals, because you have to keep the basic masses and the overall direction, turning of form correct, but you're not gonna, it's not nearly as unforgiving as the completely smooth surface of a human, which doesn't have anything to, usually doesn't have that much to hide, things that you want to leave out or cheat out of ignorance. So like, you know, my knowledge of human anatomy is okay. I don't know all the muscles of the arm. I pretty much know what the bones are and some of the major muscles, but I'm not even all that knowledgeable about how they fit together. That's not super great. I'm not saying that that's something to aspire to, but I don't typically draw like buff dudes, so it's kind of not a problem for me. And similarly, I'm also like a huge slacker about the anatomy of the muscular anatomy of animals. Like, some people are very, very good students of that, and they like, you know, look at écorché dissection things of horses, or they've got one of those great old books that's like, here's every muscle in a horse, and they actually learn them. I am not like that. I have never been like that, and it's probably because I'm lazy, but what I certainly haven't found that it's been a detriment to my ability to communicate what I wanted to communicate. And a lot of that just has to do with the fact that the exterior of animals is sort of clothed with fur, and fur tends to hide what's really going on underneath. So as long as you get kind of the major components, the big building blocks, plausible. Do I need to know like every muscle in the cat's arm? Probably not. Is it gonna like make or break me if I don't know like what muscle it is that inserts here and goes over there? I really don't think so. If you would like to spend your life learning these things, then by all means. And you may come up to me in 10 years and be like, oh no, you really missed out on the good stuff by not learning all that. And I'll believe you. But I don't want anyone to feel like they have to worry that if they don't learn that stuff, they won't be able to make a pretty convincing drawing. And I think that my ability to draw is like good enough for what I like to do, and I've gotten good feedback on what I do, so I think that I kind of know what I'm doing, and I do so with big gaps in my own knowledge. And I try to compensate for that by pretty much trying to get down what I can and putting more energy into trying to get the emotion or the energy or the kind of gesture and movement of the subject. And, you know, you could say that that's like, I haven't earned that, because until I've thoroughly exhausted my, you know, anatomical dissection of the subject, I shouldn't even try to get loose. But, I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to believe that you need that stuff, because when you think about the oldest drawings that there are, the oldest artwork that's ever been found, are all these breathtaking paintings, cave paintings of bison and lions and rhinos and mammoths and just gorgeous bulls, horses, donkeys, these amazing animal drawings. And they were done by people just like you and me who did not have photography. They did not have, they couldn't get close to them because they were wild animals. They didn't have, I guess, you know, if you kill something, you can bring it close and get really close to draw it, but I don't think that they were doing like super complex dissectional drawings of lions and tigers and stuff. They were drawing from life. I don't think that they were at that place yet where, you know, people eventually ended up going in the Renaissance, where they really, really wanted to know exactly what was going underneath. You know, those are still really good drawings. And there's nothing less artistically viable about them, in spite of the fact that they probably lacked what you and I would consider a scientific understanding of the anatomy of the animals that they were drawing. They had limited resources, limited time, no ability to look at super detailed references, and yet they're still complete timeless masterpieces. So think long and hard about what you want to spend your time doing. What do you want to communicate? What do you feel like you would communicate if you gave yourself permission to? Because it's always good to be scholarly, and it's never a bad idea to do a study. But don't let your fear of ignorance, of your own ignorance, censor you from expressing something that you notice from your own perspective. If you see a liveliness or a playfulness in something, and you don't know what the heck you're looking at, but you see that playfulness, then draw that. If you see something silly in a person's face, and you want to mark down that it's silly, make a silly drawing. Somebody's going to look at that and laugh, but in a good way. They'll laugh with you. You know, you may not know squat about, human anatomy and physiology and the muscles and the bones of the face and all that kind of stuff. It's not going to stop you from, or at least it shouldn't stop you from being a person in the world who has an observation and using a colored stick to try to put that observation down and show it to someone else and maybe hope that they see what you were trying to get at. And this is something that I say that I'm preaching this now because it's like all advice is really for yourself in the past. And that's certainly something that I went through a lot of, worrying that I can't do this or I can't draw that because I don't really know what it is, or I'm faking it. And that everybody feels like that. You just gotta become zen about it, accept that you're gonna feel that way, do your best, but don't hide yourself, don't hold yourself back out of the fear that somehow it's wrong for you to express what you want to express because it's not, fully schooled. All right. Thus endeth the sermon. I hope that this has been helpful. Again, please let me know in comments. Please give me feedback however you want. Well, I guess on YouTube would be preferable. And let me know topics that you want me to talk about, or if there's something in this video that that I went by too quickly and you say, what the heck is she talking about? Then just let me know, because I think this is helpful for me to try to articulate the way that I work, and I hope that it's something that becomes useful to one of you guys. And I appreciate your liking and subscribing and doing all of that good internet stuff too. Thanks a lot.